imagine a staircase of education, schooling, training, and indoctrination. If you're imagining it like a staircase, education is at the highest point where it enables a student to transcend their environment. So the teacher has full autonomy. They're not running off a prescriptive program. This is all about the highest good of the child.
Yeah.
So schooling is where there can be an imposition of, say, a syllabus, because obviously we have a schooling system. We call it education, but it's actually a schooling system where there is some structure, and that enables.
Is that different from training?
Yeah, so the training's the next one down. So schooling is still a positive pursuit, right?
Right.
It's just got a little bit more structure to it than pure education. Training is still a positive pursuit. It enables the student to fit into a static environment, because usually it's something prescriptive that you need the worker to be able to do.
Sort of
be
a skills-based thing?
Skills-based, so military training, trade training.
Right.
Follow this process and you'll get that outcome.
Right.
That's what training is, right? If you want to work this machinery correctly, you need to follow all these steps. That's what training is. So the next one comes after this is indoctrination. Now, this is below what we call the waterline, because it's not a positive pursuit. Indoctrination psychologically corrals a student into a static environment. And what Elizabeth talks about is that to be classed as indoctrination, it fundamentally has to have a harmful ideological component, which means that it's not the pursuit of the greatest good for the child or the student. It's going to potentially harm them or be negative going. And please go back to her video for the full information about it. So what's happened in the education system over the time is that with the imposition of, say, a syllabus, true education, which is rare anyway, you're probably thinking back to like Socrates and Plato and all of that big stuff.
That's gone. I see it's gone from your...
Gone, and it's been merged into schooling, but it's been renamed education.
So now we think that one is education.
Yeah. If you keep going, what then has happened is they've taken education, and then with the imposition of NCEA and quite prescribed learning outcomes and things like that, it's now become more like training, but they've renamed it education. So people just still think it's education, but it's
we're
very
heading
prescribed
down the scale more and more and more to
more prescribed learning outcomes.
To indoctrination, I take it.
So then, in some parts of what we consider to be education, some of us who are looking at this would say that now what we're actually seeing is indoctrination. But this collapse of the staircase has happened over time so slowly that
we don't notice.
It's called education, and we just go, oh, that's education. That's quality pedagogy, when it's actually a far cry from quality pedagogy.
It's just slowly boiling the frog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my concern is, and lots of parents out there, is it's just creating little Automon students who don't have these big blue sky ideas because they're collapsed into this very prescriptive environment. Teaching graduates warned off the profession. 2005. Instead of the usual graduation ceremony commendations for commitment, dedication and hard work, Massey University teaching graduates have found themselves all but warned off their chosen profession. Emeritus Professor Ivan Snook told the assembled graduates in Palmerston North they were entering a major site of struggle. So what he talks about is the transformation of the structure of education and changing it from true education into what would be, if I just highlight
the indoctrination.
Well, he probably didn't even go that far back then, but he said bookkeeping. So, and this happened a lot where you've
bookkeeping, compliance replacing pastoral care.
So it's the admin side of teaching.
Testing squeezes out teaching.
And the second part of that there, where it's the third part where it says skills training, replacing education. Skills training has replaced true education. And actually the next bit, which says teachers faced increased surveillance, which is interesting, which means that everything is reported out on. We're seen as skilled technicians. This is the teacher is seen as a skilled technician rather than a professional that in the teaching field, and we're prevented. So what that's saying there is, if you go back to the staircase, a training system would have a skilled technician training others. So it's not true education anymore. The reason that I spent some time looking at that is because I'm questioning the word education on the Relationships and Sexuality Education, what we call RSE. The E says education.
True.
But I'm going to throw something out to the parents here. Is it education?
Is it schooling?
Is it schooling? Is it relationships and sexuality training? Or is it relationships and sexuality indoctrination? we've got to look at the words really closely instead of just assume that education means like what it meant 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Softly, softly change the meaning.
Yeah.
Mm.
I hope that helps some people as to understand the questions that we're asking and why.